All right, hello everyone. Welcome to 2020 final edition of A Sip of Knowledge with Marty Duffy, Liz Rhoades, and Lew Bryson, plus two special guests to say goodbye to this special year. Jake and Wilson are here. I'll let your hosts give a more formal introduction to them in just a moment. Real quick, before I turn things over to them, I'm Will Hukee from Zavvi.co. And if you want to say hello, let us know where you're tuning in from. There's a chat on the right side of the screen that you'll see. If at any point during this presentation you have a question for Jake, Wilson, or any of your hosts, there's a little button at the bottom of the screen that says Ask a Question. Just type it in down there. I'll be keeping an eye on those and relaying them to your hosts. And last but not least, feel free to share the event. There's a button at the top that makes it easy to invite your friends to come join us in this celebration at the end of the year. But with all that said, Marty, Liz, Lew, I will turn things over to the three of you now.
Thank you, Will. You are like a shining beacon in a dark sea of ignorance. Hi, everyone. My name is Martin Duffy, and welcome to it's a Sip of Knowledge. My credentials are for 14 years. I was a senior master of whiskey for the DIAGEO whiskeys, and then 18 glorious months as the national brand ambassador for Benedictine. Party. It was 18 months of pure partying. Then 8 years as the co-producer of Chicago Spirit Expo, and for the last 6.5 years, I have been the North American brand representative for the Glencairn Crystal. Look at the size of that hand. Now we turn it over to Liz, who was transported back into the 1940s. They didn't even have this technology back then, so this is amazing.
So via email, we decided all to celebrate New Year's Eve on the show. We all agreed to wear a black tie. You can see we did. But nevertheless, thanks for joining everyone. Technical distiller and spirit consultant. I have just over a decade of experience in alcoholic beverage, spanning across a variety of substrates and products, including beer, rum, vodka, but my particular expertise and favorite is whiskey. Why we're all here. I spent the majority of my career at DIAGEO, but now am currently founder and principal at Spirit Safe Consulting. And if you scroll down to the About the Host section, you can click on a link to my website. So check it out. Over to Lew.
Thank you, Liz. I am Lew Bryson. I am a whiskey writer. I've been doing that for quite a while. I was the managing editor of Whisky Advocate Magazine, in fact, for 20 years, and am currently a senior drinks writer with the Daily Beast website, and plugging my most recent book, Whisky Masterclass. Whisky Masterclass.
So good.
Glencairn glass. Should have been on the cover, but we couldn't pull that off.
Yeah.
Whiskey Masterclass. Try it. Buy it. Speaking of trying and buying, today, the whiskey I'm drinking is the new Alberta Premium Cask Strength Rye at 66%. Wow, what a Canadian. Back to you, Marty.
Wow, what a savings. Today, because of Jake's kindness, he has sent us some samples in a very luxurious gift box of some of the Starward whiskeys. Yeah, Union Horse just couldn't bring it together. Couldn't get it together in time. So, hello.
I love Star Wars whiskeys.
Yeah, they're the best. I think mostly. Will, can we just take Wilson's screen off? Can we just focus on Jake? So this week, we're doing a little year in review. Going to look back on 2020 and put a big stick up its butt and roast it a little bit to a fine finish. And with that, we brought on two guys who have been following things quite closely over the course of the year in their own podcast, A Key in the Lake, based here in Chicago, where they have talked with a number of different folks in the drinks industry, both on-premise, suppliers, near and far. I know they've had some Irish and Scotch brands on their show. They themselves, we have little Jake Hukee. Little Jake Hukee is with Starward, Australian whiskey. Hello there, mate. Boy.
Hello, Marty.
Here we go.
I have no Australian accent though.
Yeah,
A firm Midwest accent.
it's so thick, it sounds Midwestern.
I've been here for so long.
We have Wilson Torres. Wilson.
Oh.
Wilson. I'm sorry, Wilson.
Oh, Richard.
I love that.
I'm just going to call you Richard today.
Well, Wilson is with Union Horse Distilling out of Kansas, out of old Kansas, which sounds really good.
Good, okay.
So, guys, first off, let's pour a whiskey. I think some of us have Jake's whiskey. Which one would you suggest, my friend? You have a number of little samples here: Nova, Solera. One that's written by someone who knows Sanskrit, I think.
It's interesting. Well, Marty, Liz, Lou, thanks for having us first.
Oh, sure.
Foremost, yeah. I'm glad we could help wrap up this wonderful year of 2020.
Just wrap it the sooner the goddamn better.
Wrap it up in old dirty fish.
Wrap it up and
Fish
tie it to the ceiling fan. I don't know. As a brand ambassador for Starward now for almost 2 years. It's been a pretty cool job selling Australian whiskey across America. But I would probably say twofold would be the best one to start off with. It's the lightest, easiest drinking. Lou can't drink it because he gave me the wrong address, so who knows where those bottles are at. But I hope the mailman enjoys them.
The weird thing
My neighbor probably has it.
in Pennsylvania, a lot of people don't know this. Houses are built on kind of a treadmill, and so they're constantly moving around.
Rotating.
A big shell game.
I could try to explain to you how things get delivered in my tiny little town, but I'm not sure I understand it myself. It's a bizarre, arcane procedure.
Lou
We'll give you a full hour of that on the Key and Lake podcast whenever we can start work.
Lou sits on his front porch just telling people, you can't get that from here. All right. Yeah. No way. Now, Wilson, you've been with Union Horse for how long?
It'll be 3 years in April.
3 years in April. Wow, 3 years in April. Then the two of you, oddly enough, both started here in Chicago at the same distillery, Caval.
We did.
Yeah.
That's where you guys get to know each other?
Definitely. I was at Caval for about a year or so before Wilson started, maybe a year and a half. I'd been doing some work in the beer industry prior to that, but was doing a little bit of everything at Caval, just helping try to spread the good word about the really great Chicago distillery here in the city. And then Wilson joined on, and quickly we became really good friends and came up with a lot of ideas of how to grow the brand across the city and obviously into some other states too that we helped out with here from the main office. But after we both left Caval, we kind of started the podcast to almost maintain our friendship in a way, because we would go down to our local watering hole, Beguile Brewing, for lunch and have a beer, and then go down there after work on Fridays and have another beer or six. And we just kind of kept the conversations going. There's always the best conversations we had. And in about a year or so of doing that, I was like, hey, we should start a podcast. And Wilson's like, what's a podcast? I told him all about it.
Sorry.
What's a radio?
Yeah, but that's kind of the evolution of the podcast, was built out of the conversations we always had after work on Fridays at Beguile. And once we both left the company and kind of in different areas, not seeing each other as much, it was our meeting spot. And we actually started recording the podcast and recorded about 40, 50 episodes of Key and Lake at Beguile Brewing. They were gracious enough to kind of give us a little home, and they had an upstairs space that was empty, and we would drink a lot of beers and drink a lot of whiskey and have our guest on and talk conversation.
Nice.
So what's the name about? I know we talked about it before the show, but it's kind of an interesting how you landed on that name.
Definitely. I kind of I've always liked to speak in metaphors, or, kind of come up with ideas in that sense. Something that's a little bit different. I guess that's like a whole background of listening to punk rock music your entire life. And I read a passage in George Ade's The Old Time Saloon, which is a book about pre-prohibition Chicago. And one of the lines was that if you owned a bar in the loop of Chicago pre-prohibition, you could throw the key into the lake because it'd be open 24/7. Now the debauchery that came along with that 24/7 openness, who knows? But it was kind of a cool name that I always thought would be a nice name for a band. And then after I read that passage, and Paulie started the podcast a few months later and decided to go with that. It was a little homage to Chicago.
Yeah, back in the day, I used to work at a 4 o'clock bar in Old Town, Burton Place. And if you were really up to it, after you got off work at the 4 o'clock bar, you go find cop bars. Cop bars were unofficially open. Yeah, they were open. And as long as you weren't a dick, otherwise you're going to get a tune-up, and many guys got a tune-up, and that's why cop bars ended up getting closed up. But you go in, and they'd stay open, and then there's bars that opened at 7 a.m. Back
Still
in the
got
day.
one on my block.
Still there's several. Yeah.
I'm never up that early.
Well, I guess they aren't right now because I can't, but
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, now, right.
Now you can't, but yeah.
Yeah, we don't stay open late in PA, but they are open at 7. It's shift workers.
Yeah, shift workers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah.
So-
Especially tradesmen.
One of them says that they have a back patio in my neighborhood, but there's no back patio, but they're still open.
The back patio is the back part of the bar.
Giant chalkboard says patio's open.
Well, so let me throw this out to everybody, guys. Let's have an open forum about. I think for us, for Liz and Lew and myself, we really didn't talk about the whole COVID thing and the shutdowns too much, except on individual cases with some of the folks we talked about. But I think obviously it's not even an elephant; it's a herd of elephant. It's a herd of elephants mating with rhinos. It's in the room. So imagine the smell and the mess.
Well, there's a hippopotamus in the doorway just spinning shit all over everything.
Yes.
Rhinos
I'm just going with your African thing here. So
they do that, don't they? Hippos they'll poop and they'll literally the shit hitting the fan kind of thing in Africa.
See the pictures.
Probably some African game hunter came up with oh my god, look at that. That's shit hitting a fan. So what do you think? And Liz, let's start off with you because you're living. And this is on the distillery side of things. Obviously, your living now is consulting with distilleries, a lot of small distilleries. You might be seeing more so than I have, since I haven't been really traveling.
Wow.
How do you see these distilleries getting along and trying to make it during this past year and looking into 2021?
Because this is very topical, right? As of yesterday, but I think the FET permanent laws. I think that's a beacon of hope for sure for a lot of any craft distillery, right? But probably more so to the ones who didn't have large distribution, or they were very set up to be a tourist destination. I know we've talked to many on the show this year. Journeyman, the Bloms that are kind of more set up in that way. But I think for sure that the FET is going to be a big piece of it.
Did we see the numbers from ACSA?
No, what
craft distillery sales are down 41%.
Well, and that's just
tasting rooms,
right?
Yeah. You're losing liquor by the drink. You're also losing liquor by the bottle because, I know when I go to a tasting room, I usually pick up a bottle because I'm there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of drinks.
It also depends on where that distillery is, located. Like our distillery being in Lenexa, Kansas, directly west of Kansas on the proper side, as we say. Our tasting room's not open, but the bars are. Obviously. So it may be down 40%, but that's on average coast to coast, over 2,200 distilleries, as we all know that to be. But, depending on what state you live in and what color that state is, times may have not skipped a beat.
True.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but even then,
point, actually, Wilson. I mean, just
but even then, tourism. I mean, even if it is a state that hasn't really crashed down, really locked down big time. The problem is you have other states like Illinois. Our mayor here in Chicago wants you to quarantine for 2 weeks if you go north to Wisconsin. I mean, that's what? If I go over the Cheddar Curtain, all of a sudden I have a better chance of being infected than
isn't that a commute for a lot of people?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I have a buddy of mine works up in Gurnee. Not Gurnee. One of those little Kenosha.
Kenosha, yep.
That's why you have a 24-hour leniency, Marty, because you can go there for 23 and a half hours, come back, and you're perfectly fine.
Exactly. It's always that 24th hour.
I was in Denver earlier this month for work, and I was only gone for 18 hours, so it was totally fine when I came back.
That law works for Ebola, too, I found out. Yeah. Never stay anywhere where if there's a big Ebola breakout more than 23 hours. Boom. Lew, what about you? You still have gone out and checked out some of your guys locally, right there.
I've been to two since March.
Have you really?
Yep. Wow. That's it. Well, and one of those is because Barrel 21 Distillery in State College was letting us, they were letting my buddy Sam and I do our video tastings in there in the off hours. I mean, I haven't even been in the distillery there. I've waved to Mike a couple of times, but we're out in the open space because it's a big open space. We were doing it at our houses, and it was just, we felt, irresponsible getting together and not knowing what the hell was going on. So, but otherwise, I went over to Dad's Hat. I live near Dad's Hat. I'm like 20 minutes from them, the rye whiskey place here in PA, to help with a barrel sampling. Those are the only two places I've been. Been to a couple breweries, maybe 3-4, but that's it.
Oh, see, that's.
I know, it's just.
I know it's well, and the other thing too. Even so, Wilson, to your point, even here in Chicago, you have a number of distilleries that are right here, right on the outskirts of the city. That, some folks have gone to them, especially when the whole hand sanitizer thing was happening. That was a great thing to bring people in. But I got more hand sanitizer than I know what to do with.
Yeah,
I might as well have body sanitizer. Take a big bath in it.
We were meaning to talk to you about that. Actually,
it's just called a shower, Marty.
That's what that is.
I think you can sit. There's a couple bottles in the background sitting up there, hand sanitizer.
Yeah. I got big bottles of it, and you can only go. Turns out, you can use it a lot every day if you have a little spray bottle, and still not go through a lot.
Yeah.
So that's slowed it down. I know some guys, Guy Rehorse up in Milwaukee, he was doing great business at his bar. The bar they had inside the distillery. He'd be pulling down 7,000. On a Saturday night, that's going.
Yeah,
that's a huge hit. A lot of these guys might still be selling. Some might.
Caught that fox.
All right, 2021's bringing in some new regulations on what we can have in the background during the show. Lawrence Talbot. The Wolfman is not allowed in the studio. At least my cat only sticks its butt in my face.
In the crate now. It's all good.
All right.
Subscription programs, some of the ADR or even that craft distillers are doing. Have you guys seen that? Really successful, or do you think it's here to stay?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the complete question.
Either.
Subscription
I'm here and I heard it. Come on.
programs like Flaviar, or even I think distilleries themselves are doing some subscription programs. Is that here to stay? Who has that really helped in terms of the craft industry?
Yeah, I know, like, we personally do work with Flaviar, and we do work with another company called Touch of Modern that we did a subscription base too, where we were selling off just like having deals on our bottles that they sold through there. And it's really nice for that quick response and selling 100 bottles, within a couple of weeks. But my fear is longevity with all of that. Like, how long can that go for, where people are getting, X number of bottles per month, and they haven't maybe opened up the bottle from last month by the time they get something new. That's kind of our biggest fear. So as we're transitioning everything to virtual tastings and doing things like this, I almost think that can help out more if you can talk directly to consumers and they can go down to your local liquor store and buy a bottle that way because they've tried it through a sample kit that way, like provided you guys. It's something that's not very cost effective, like expensive. I mean, I think it's like $10 on average for me to send out one of those kits for people to go out and try. And they have the bottles sitting there at home that are small samples versus buying a bigger bottle they're taking a chance on. I know Flaviar is obviously a little bit smaller, but it's something that you just have to do and roll with right now. And seeing what's going to happen in individual markets and in individual states for the next few months. Because, like, for me, Texas is one of my markets, and we're doing tastings down there like crazy. I'm not personally going to them, but Florida's the same way. Like, Florida's like, you only have 5 bottles on the shelf for your tasting this weekend. We're like, okay, cool. That's enough we can get right now because we don't have people in the market, but we're still doing tasting programs with third-party agencies. And it's
so is that effective enough that it's going to keep going if things go back to normal, assuming things go back to normal?
As in, will we stay doing virtual things? Or
we continue to do those in addition to on-site?
It's been a big topic of conversation on our podcast with any brand ambassador, anybody in the industry we have, because absolutely, we got into a just 2-hour conversation without turning the microphones on the other night in my living room that Wilson was a part of. Yeah, we were in between recording like 5 different podcasts in one day, and the best conversation we had we didn't even record, but it was about the whole new online premise in a way, for tagging it for a different term, is how do we reach out to influencers? How do we reach out to people that have an online presence, or even liquor stores that have a great online presence too, and maintaining those relationships and building those relationships even when things shift back to normal, whatever that looks like in next 9 to 12 months. But you shouldn't forget about the work that you've already done here and just forfeit all that cost and all those opportunities and relationships you've already built, because I can send a bottle out to one of my buddies who has 12,000 followers, all that are whiskey people, and he can post one really great thing, and hopefully we get some bottle sales out of that. I think we will. I know we will, but at least we'll get that visual experience too, versus going and doing a demo at a retailer where I might sell 1 to 2 bottles sometimes in a 3-hour tasting and send out 12 samples to people. And that's a lot of time and effort to do that. That's, usually around 4.5 hours round trip when it comes to you getting there, doing the tasting, cleaning up and all of that, going back and probably doing something else as well. And it's a half a day of work versus, hey, here's a bottle, take a picture. If you like it, write something nice about it. And if you don't, that's fine too.
Yeah. And the touch that you have, the outreach that you have with people, like to piggyback off what Jake said, when we do tastings at our local, for Binny's or wherever we may be placed, you're not guaranteed anything.
Right.
But by doing the online tasting, again, on Jake's point, we are guaranteed getting 25 pairs of eyes and ears directly onto us, and they have the pours in front of them, much more effective. And why? Because they're interested. When you do them at Binny's, there's so much more going on. We are one bottle that is not probably at the best merchandise eye level, and unless we're there, and to hand sell it, but that's where these are so much more effective, and the cost is a lot less, and the effort is the same. I mean, it's the same thing we would do at a store face to face, but we're just doing it virtually.
Right. And you can do the follow-up right away. You see everybody's names, right, you have their email addresses, you have their Instagram handles, their Facebook names, whatever it may be. It's easy and direct follow-up. And if they both buy a bottle after the tasting, they post it, and they post it in their groups and their forums on Facebook. And you're like, oh, I'm getting direct results from this right now.
Yeah. I mean, and to your question, Liz, for us as the size that we are, the subscription route wouldn't work in our favor. because we are a craft brand. We do cost more than your more commercial available, the big six out of Kentucky and so on and so forth, unless we just took a bath just to get that out there, and we're not going to do that, so what we decided to do instead is focus on our independents, who hand sell throughout the city and suburbs and throughout the state instead.
That's another thing, thinking about me as a consumer, right? Obviously, a lot of people, if they go to a Benny's, a Total Wine, it's so overwhelming. But you're like, I got to be in here for 15 minutes, and I got to limit my exposure, right? And so, I almost think that mentality probably will still exist for a while.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, to your point, going into Benny's, it is so crowded. Like, you're just gonna grab something that you're very
right
with. But to your point with the tastings, that's something then that me as a consumer, I know what it tastes like. It's on a risk. I'm just gonna go. I can now quickly, grab that and
right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, but unless you're hyper, unless you're really like uber scared about the, possibly being, near anyone else, the subscription route is great. The delivery services are another avenue as well. The Drizzlies, the mini bars, or the Foxtrots here in Chicago, but they're so well curated that, again, price point we are at a disadvantage. Because when you do business here in Chicago, Benny's they receive the best pricing. They've got about almost 50 stores. They're going to get the best volumetric pricing, which then extends to their customer base. We go to any other place like the subscription services, the delivery joints, or just anyone else that's not as large as Benny's, we can't offer that pricing because it goes against to what we promised to them already.
Right.
So there's not a monopoly, but there is an advantage there on their behalf. However, sorry, that was a little tangent, but what would really be great is that if we could really touch base with delivery services that are being serviced to those independents, like the Bitter Pops, the bottles and cans, and independents where they hire their own delivery service to deliver them goods from their own proper shelves. Now, that's been something that we've experienced, that we've seen an uptick about 3% since the beginning of May. So it's promising. You're paying more on average per bottle, and then plus the delivery on top of that. But if you're more worried about your health and exposure, then there is no price on it. Right. So we're banking on that attitude.
The other thing too with these groups is that, I mean, if you're catering to a lot of these online whiskey groups, is that there's also the group mentality. So if you say, hey, we're going to do a Starward, or we're going to do Union Horse tasting, they want to all be part of it. And they're not, they usually get really good attendances. I've been invited a bunch. You watch them, and they get great turnouts. And, nobody wants to sit through a whiskey tasting without a sample of that whiskey in front of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lew gets very upset.
I might as well just leave right now.
Yeah.
Take your dog with you, though.
Oh! Yeah. Why are you leaving on that dog you rode in on?
I love my little dog, and you would love him if you saw him. So
there's love. There's love.
I mean, to your point, though, Marty, Jake and I both facilitate those very virtual tastings, and we ship out those tastings directly to those, those people that are participating.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Good point. Thanks, brother. Or we
showing in many states.
Yeah, or we drop them off at a agreed upon store, call it like the beer cellar in Glen Ellen and in Geneva. We'll drop off said packs, and those who are signed up go to those places, picks up their packs, and obviously the show goes on.
So between something like that and the barrel picks that groups are doing, and the chatter effect on Facebook that the groups have, how much are groups driving sales as opposed to 5 years ago? Are they as big? Because I mean, from where I'm sitting, the influence seems large. When I put out my first whiskey book, Tasting Whiskey, was October 2014. I don't think I went to any groups on my book tours. Not one. They weren't there. You know, there were a couple, but now, hell, I mean the book tours that I had planned and didn't do, they were at least half whiskey clubs. It seems like a huge thing.
When Starward entered the market in early 2019, there was no focus on single barrel program whatsoever. And now my main project for 2021 is whiskey groups. Like that's my main focus right now until we can get back to normal, because there's no on premise to really deal with at the moment, other than doing a few cocktails to go. But that's also a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort to go into getting a case or two of bottles sold at the end of the day. That could be sitting there for 2 months with the cocktail program rolling out, or to-go cocktail program rolling out. But yeah, it's huge. I think it's going to be a big part of the future. I mean, I have a list of 50 or so of groups that I'm focusing on. And then I feel like every week there's another one that pops up asking, hey, can we do a tasting? Hey, do you want to hang out with us? And it's almost like it's a branch of another group breaking off with this larger group, making their own subgroup. It's hard to even keep up with at this point. But I mean, Wilson used to sell single barrels for Koval. And that was like, it was cool when it happened, but it wasn't a focus at all. And then now it's like, it's where we're at. I mean, he's developed a whole single barrel program for the city of Chicago with Union Horse, where he can sell at the various markets, but also get buzz inside of those whiskey groups that can buy a bottle and say like, hey, like this is an exemplary product that we can buy from Union Horse that I bought through a market. We could even do our own here in the future.
I mean, I've seen these guys talking on Facebook. It's like they're hand selling to themselves. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
we can't forget about the people though, like in your bennies that are going in there for looking around like those. And also I want to get back to like, we're not trying to negate the in-store tastings, because like Wilson and I, we love those, and that's where we're building.
Just be another tier. It's another.
Right. It's an addition. It's not in place of.
Like I see this kid, he'll go out. His kid will go out and sell 2 cases on a Saturday afternoon at Benny's, and that's huge for Union Horse right there. That's where you make your brand inside of Chicago when you're competing with all these local craft distilleries that are already inside of Chicagoland area. But then all these great distillers are coming all across the Midwest and have been there forever. Like our friends down in Indiana, Tennessee, and Kentucky, that they're elite, and we're little guys trying to make our mark. But there's like some really great whiskey out there that's 2 to 3, 5 years old. And you're just trying to be out there tasting it. And if you can't taste it in person, it's such a hard thing to do. And now the online platform gives us another level, what you're talking about. It's not trying to take away from anything else, just building somewhere different. Yeah.
The other thing cool too about these whiskey groups is that they give you a geographical focus.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. Sure, some have members from other parts of the country, but you have the one here, the enthusiasts here in Illinois who are mostly suburban North Shore folks. Then you have cask chasers out in their Maryland, Pennsylvania area. You got Scotchy Bourbon boys are out of Canton, Ohio. So when you go in, you say, hey, let's do an event, and you do have to try to get the whiskey out to the individuals. At least you're not going far afield and sending something to Anchorage, Alaska or something. So God bless them. I bet Alaska is not getting the love it deserves.
They have single malt there somewhere.
Yeah, they have distilleries.
They have in the Yukon too.
Right.
Have you been up there, Liz? Have you worked on any distilleries up in Alaska yet? I want to go to Alaska. It's one of only 4 states I've never been to.
It's definitely on my list.
And I'd love to go up there, pet a polar bear, and see a
Jeez, you city guys. I don't know what the hell it is with you.
I love polar bears, so I'm with you on that one.
I want to touch it now.
I'm going with Wilson. I'm going with Wilson, and if the polar bear gets angry.
I love polar bears.
Right now.
Sacrifice.
Chew on Wilson! I'm sorry, Wilson. Wilson, I'm sorry.
Oh, my God. I knew that was going to come up.
This is actually good. This brings us around to a topic that you two are the first brand ambassadors we've had on this year, and it's a topic obviously near and dear to my heart because I was
glorious month.
Still there, yeah.
Brand ambassador for Benedictine.
And we've wanted to talk about it ever since.
I was thinking about DIAGEO days. Benedictine too.
DIAGEO tries to think about it. You should join them.
But this is where you look at, the real value of brand ambassadors. For a while there, they were getting a little, marketing wise, they're a little flabby. They're a little extra. I mean, some of them had too big of heads and weren't willing to do much. But now you look at some of the guys, you two have been busy this whole time. You guys have been doing stuff, even if it was through the podcast. That podcast was a positive thing, or is a positive thing. And you're gonna FCC notice in the mail. There's but like Dan Crowell's been doing his Zoomcast things and putting the brand out there, keeping it out there, reaching out to a lot of these whiskey groups, various consumers. I mean, that's really what a brand ambassador was always supposed to do. And then coming up with innovative ideas, especially, Wilson, for small brands like yours, to be able to do stuff that isn't a big drain on their pocketbook, especially during this time where they don't have that extra money.
Right.
And we both have very different ways of innovating in our jobs and adapting to that. Like, Wilson, you can go first because I think yours is probably more of a.
No, go ahead, buddy. You're already speaking.
Not that well. But
all right.
Wilson, I mean, so much of his job based on. I have kind of more of your, I guess, standard role as an ambassador where education comes first of what I'm supposed to be doing for my job. And Wilson's is a little bit more about market directing and sales focused in that sense, where he's trying to meet his KPIs and those numbers through that experience, where I'm doing more of the education based, where my job quickly was relied on my background, which was creative content and doing photography and graphic design work for us as soon as we shifted into this new way of life. And the pandemic hit, and it was all about what can we bring to the table that every individual in our company, which was only 4 people at the time for Starboard in the US, could do that was something different and role adaptive. So my job became a lot more creative of doing photos, making video content, working with bartenders to do at-home cocktail experiences and bring those to our Instagram and Facebook profiles that way. Where Wilson, he kind of went like a different route where it was more working directly with the Cocktail to Go program that he helped launch in the city to make it become legalized for us to do with bars and restaurants across the city.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, to Jake's point, or to piggyback, we both had to take different directions, our brands in different directions. He had to get more involved with the marketing and the creative content level, where I had to get more creative in helping my account base make money. It's not so much just selling, going in, presenting, selling, let the distributor come through, take the order, and let's get it on a shelf, and then mark that as a KPI. I had to go back and revisit with those accounts. I was like, all right, now that you have it, my job now is to help you get rid of it, especially during this time. That's our focus is Jake did a lot of content and get his national people in line with that creative, skill level that he has. And then I just had to go in and just come up with ideas. It was like, I just need to help you make money because that's what's necessary right now. That's what's hurting everyone right now, the money. So I need to come up with ways to help you make money.
Well, that was always the thing too. When I was a brand ambassador, that was the thing. That was the added value. So yes, I want you to bring on my, the classic malts. 6 different whiskeys. And a lot of bars at the time were going, I don't know, that's a lot of scotch. We don't get that much alcohol. I tell you what, you don't even get the 6 bottles of scotch, my friend. You're getting more than that. You're getting Martin Duffy coming in, dressed in a kilt, putting on a fake Scottish accent, and giving a presentation a la carte, or a la mode.
Off the cuff, I think is what you.
Off the cuff. I will do this. And that is an added value because the whole idea is I didn't ever wanted to sell whiskey and put it on a back bar and just see it collect dust. I want to
Yeah.
sell, and I want the whole idea. What you always heard was
correct.
we need.
There's over 5,000 bars and restaurants in the city limits alone.
There were,
and the attitude. Well,
ouch.
Correct, there were, but with hopes that we can retain those, hopefully within the near future. But for conversation's sake, I think what really allows us to do is we can't be in all 5,000 bars and restaurants. There may be brands out there that's their goal, is to be in all 5,000 bars and restaurants, and throughout the city of Chicago. But for us as a brand, it was where will we make an impact? Where will we stand out in a sense of interest level and whatnot? So it's just a matter of really doing our homework and our due diligence and having those one-to-ones with the people that Jake and I have on the show. It's the decision maker, the bar owner, the market manager the store manager, people of that level to help us gain that insight so that we can really better serve them, because we've also had to revisit that during these times. And then not only in a customer service level, but at an account service level, then ultimately helping them sell bottles. So it's just one of those things. It's we can't be everywhere, but where we are, let's make sure that it's either on a menu, in a cocktail, or it is on special, or it is the first thing out of your bartender's mouth and or server's mouth.
That's a focus that Wilson, you and I have been doing for 5 years with other brands working for, was about why don't we make ourselves the best thing in this city where we come from, or why don't we make ourselves the ownership of this area, of this region, and not try to outstretch ourselves in any capacity. And I know your brands and Callum's brands, all of our friends last year, we started to really take a look at and really invest time into the 10 to 20 accounts that were doing the best work for us, and that we had those relationships with and already adjusting before the quarantine even happened.
Yeah. I mean, we had to I hate to use the word again, but pivot. We did it was more of a 360. It was not a 180. It was a 360, because we really had to revisit everything we did, regardless of our list of responsibilities, and really look at it closer, and then really have a deeper conversation. I think one of the things that I really appreciate during this time, and I know this is probably insensitive to say, but there are places that have more time to talk and have more time to taste and have more time to really think about things. And it's been awesome to be able to sit and do that with them, to better understand how they do business and better understand who was drinking what. Because now I feel that once this is, beyond us, and we all slowly get back to what we were accustomed to, or this stays the norm, we will see a lot less being offered everywhere.
I say, fight the machine. Go back to the way it was. Don't. It's like Invasion of the Pod people. Don't let them control you. Go back.
Only wish.
Now, boys, you two have also been through your podcast, and obviously through a lot of your brand work, been dealing with the on-premise quite a bit. And for the life of me, it's funny, when I think of a bar here in Chicago now, I don't think of any that are open, because inside seating is still verboten, I do believe, and it's too cold for outside seating, I guess, for most places. Right. You put the heat lamps out, but
it's not predictable, though. You never know when the day is going to come along that it is okay for the heat lamps, and So how do you know who to have on? How do you know when to have staff in? It's tough.
And then even that, so next week we're going to have Mike Miller from Delilah's, and Mike's been closed this entire time, and now he could have been open, but he could have had people at one point. He could have had people inside the bar, but only 25%. And he said at 25%,
not worth it.
I couldn't pay the lighting bills.
Yeah, real estate is everything here in the city as we know it. There's bars out, the old school mom and pop shops, the neighborhood joints all have smaller spaces, so the capacity already plays against them.
Right.
Even if, depending on where they're located in the city, what neighborhood of the 7-7 that we have, their patio is probably just the first 15 feet. That's not going to do them anymore. The places in the loop that have thousands upon thousands of square footage, may be worth their time. But even then, we didn't even.
I mean, but their costs are actually higher.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
So therefore, even if they're doing 25%, they really can't afford it. They just
they're only surviving with the sidewalk space or the street space, and they're shutting that down to develop inside of those those small little areas in the loop area north.
We had a place up Central PA, a big brew pub that just opened. They're in an old casting plant, so they have all this space, and then they got a food truck comes in for kitchen. That seems to be working for them because they really only need about 3 people to work the floor space and the taps, and then kitchen space is nothing for them. So that's working. But I mean,
but that's just
it's working like driving with a flashlight works. You get there, but it's going to take a while.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were talking about this on our podcast since the quarantine began, about how the on-premise would be affected, and we were interviewing bar managers and bartenders, people we just knew throughout the city and people across the country, really, about how it was changing and adapting. And once everything kind of opened back up at 40% capacity, I think was the max we had indoors at one point, we saw a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel and became optimistic. But then within 3 to 4 weeks, we became pretty pessimistic about the future, trying to remain enthusiastic about what was going to happen during the colder months. I remember recording one podcast on a really nice fall day at Fountainhead outside on the roof deck, and we were talking like, winter's looming, the cold weather in the fall is looming just ahead of us. And what do we do? And we were all pretty enthusiastic, like, hey, bring blankets, bring heaters as the bars, and do all this. But you did that a few times, and the next thing you know, I'm wearing like a pea coat and a jean jacket and a sweater underneath that and a hat and gloves. Yeah. And we're drinking outside and recording podcasts with Marty Duffy. And
our local brew pub called it the Long John and Lawn Chair program.
I like that.
Well, that's right. You guys had the podcast up on the rooftop at Fountainhead one night. And then that wasn't too bad. They had the heat lamps, and there was no wind up there, so it was nice. Then a few days later, there was another event, and the wind came through, and man, a big difference.
Right. I don't understand the tents. A bunch of tents are popping up here in Jersey, and I just don't get. I was like, but it's still
indoors.
With the walls, with the side,
Well, I think there must be some loophole. I went to a restaurant in the southwest suburbs, and yes, their indoor restaurant was closed, but they always were famous for this outdoor patio. Mm-hmm. Now they had a awning over a third, but it's a big third. It's a big section, and they had the plastic sheeting to.
That loophole is called lax enforcement, I think.
And it's like, well, okay, are we inside? Well,
yes.
Don't bother me. I'm immune. But vitamin D and zinc, baby. That's what you do. Vitamin D. You know that, Liz. You're a scientist.
Yes. I think there's a lot of research.
But as far as the on-premise concerned, Jake and I, when we were at Cobalt, that was something that he and we would preach about. We would really look at. It's like I'm a firm believer in it, and I think I got Jake on board on, or he's just a good enough of a friend to let me run with it. But it's the new on-premise is the home bar. The new on-premise is we're going back to cocktails at home, cocktail hour, and enjoying people's company more, and having that home bar.
I believe the home bar. I don't believe in. I mean, I live alone. If I go to my home bar, I think that makes me an alcoholic. Because I'm drinking a
lot. No. How much you drink makes you an alcoholic. Come on.
Now I'm not an alcoholic because I'm drinking with you guys.
Is that why you're using the smaller glass? Is that the concern?
It keeps these portions. Everything's better in moderation.
I make that handle huge. Well,
that's why you use the small glass and the cask strength.
We were talking to retailers about how much they're selling through bitters and other products at the very beginning of the quarantine. And it was huge. And I think people now are getting sick of that home experience when they have to make everything, or it takes 5-10 minutes to make a drink for just to sit at your couch and watch them.
I was after about the third drink, I'll be honest.
Right.
I don't have a lot of patience. I like paying bartenders to make drinks for me.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And we're creatures of habit.
That's
you
why
know?
whiskey on the rocks or whiskey neat. That's
Yep.
pretty. That's
Classic.
done.
Well, actually, I mean, again, not to plug my home guy, but Dad's Hat is doing a series of whiskey cocktails in like little hip flask bottles. I don't know, what are they, 200 milliliter bottles?
Yeah.
And they're
There's
apparently
75,
selling like
200.
crazy.
Yeah.
You know, there's about 3 drinks in each bottle.
Yeah.
And you just pour it over ice and put a garnish and boom. And that I'm doing. That's easy.
Lou, you just got a TV tray next to you, a bottle of vermouth, a bucket of ice, your favorite whiskey, and a glass. How hard
No,
is
I
it?
would screw that up.
So the cocktail, movement, is that still performing well, or, especially since it's wintertime, like, I don't know, like most days I don't leave my house. So like, and do you think is there longevity to that cocktail to go program?
It depends who you ask, because I mean, Jake and I. Well, Jake has had more conversations on the podcast than I have had, but the ones that I have listened to that I wasn't unable to be a part of focus on that. It's like he actually had bartenders like, yeah, it's great to be able to do it, but they're still not. That's not gonna. It's not a long ball play. It's a short game with that,
And both of us having success off of those programs, it's because we have had established relationships with either a retailer or a bar that it's not, and we're doing the legwork. I mean, we're doing the research to what we want to build in it. We're paying for all the supplies. We're helping them bottle the cocktails as well, where you're spending an entire day doing that. And thankfully for that, I mean, not
absolutely.
Like, hey, thank you for the business. Thank you for believing us and continuing this relationship. But at the same time, a lot of effort goes into it just to like kind of keep your name out there. And you can't do that with like 10, 12 accounts. You can do that with a handful at best.
Handful at best. I agree with you 100%, brother. Yeah, because it's, and you want to help everyone, but you can't be everywhere. So you have to we also have to put it back onto the actual account. It's like, if you're going to do this, you can't come to market with a $18 200 ml flat. You can't.
Right.
That's just not going to sell. It's not to take away from the quality of that cocktail.
Right.
Bar Kumiko, beautiful cocktails, and Julia's got them packaged beautifully. Personally, I'd pay that price, because just everything that's behind that brand, and her personally, and her being behind the Cocktails for Hope movement here in Chicago, I would do so because of all that. But I think we need to. That's where brands also. Then we're forgetting a lot of our brothers and sisters in the market, because of the fact that not everyone, craft distilleries, not all of them have cocktail pricing.
Right.
You can't put a $50 bottle of rye into a cocktail, because it's not going to garner anyone any money. Right. So it's a matter of already having that part and established. And as Jake mentioned, approaching those handful of accounts that we've got deep roots with and relationships, pitching them the idea and help guide them through and be part of the process, not just give them an answer and walk away and hope for the best.
And I think the longevity of Cocktails to Go, we spoke about maybe 6 weeks after they officially became legal here in Chicago. Where they're going to succeed is people going back to the bars and restaurants sometime in the future, and they have a couple of drinks, they have a dinner, and they're like, hey, let's go home, have a nightcap. Let's take these 2 cocktails home to go that are $20, combined, and go home, have a cocktail instead of going as pouring a drink or making a cocktail at home. That's when you can take advantage of it for the future and how they'll succeed here in Chicago, and I think other places too.
Yeah. So it's a one-stop shop. You can't ask them to make 3 different stops. Hey, let's go pick up dinner, then let's go over here to Long Room and pick up our cocktails to go, and then on the way pick up a bag of ice. That's a lot of fucking bullshit. No one wants to do that.
But
no one wants to do that.
In this scenario, I can see the cocktails to go though being squashed very easily once, say, whether it's now or.
You mean legally or commercially?
Legally, because the city's always looking for a reason to make people unhappy.
Well, we only have it for the year, so
it's not really.
Right, no, I know. Yeah. But what I'm saying,
some places have made it permanent already. A couple of states have.
Yeah, but once people leave with them, all you need is for someone to start drinking it in their car.
Yep.
You get caught.
The
Yeah,
same
the dumbass.
issue with
Growlers.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
that's
what?
come up in conversations. It's the same deal. I agree, Liz. Growlers and beers of growlers.
Oh, I know.
See,
Right.
that's the thing. The rules with wine and beer are so much looser, and they're not as many as the
Well-
fucking pages that we have on our spirits.
Right.
And we,
But guys,
we keep thinking these laws are fixed in, but I'll tell you right now, I've spoken to people from Amazon. They're working on making sure the distribution is going to go statewide, where you're going to basically evade the third distributor, the third party system, the three party system, and they're gonna have cocktail kits. They're gonna have whiskey kits like we are already producing ourselves, and they have the power, they have the money, they have the man force to make sure these laws are passed, and it's inevitable. It's going to happen.
yeah, but don't forget, you're talking about in the city of Chicago, anyways.
Yeah.
You don't see the 50 mLs. Why? Because the Richard M. Daley, the brain trust that he was, thought, oh my God, it's so much easier to drink those while you're driving, as opposed to a guy going right over the city limits, stocking up on a whole bunch of Smirnoff 50 mLs.
Isn't that why Indiana won't sell cold beer to go?
Right.
Because if you sell cold beer to go, you
has
drink
more
it.
answer than that than I do.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't. It drives me crazy the things that they think might happen, and you can always, this is the laboratory of the states. Look, they have that in that other state, and it doesn't happen. Yeah, but it might.
Right.
Exactly.
And
that's just it.
The whole point back to you, Marty, with the 50 milliliter bottles, their whole goal of that, or the resolution to it was, hey, if you buy one, you have to buy 4 at a time because that adds 200 milliliters. So you can't buy 150 milliliter at a time, you have to buy 4 at a time.
I was doing a work with.
Not that you'll drink those.
No.
With back in, I think it was 2010, and that's when Daley had initiated this thing. And this guy comes in. It was early. It was I do off premise in the morning. And it was a small kind of in a liquor store in a strip mall. Yeah. And I go in and trying to sell this guy Lagavulin. He no Lagavulin. I could not buy this by the pallet. I go through. This guy would buy 100 cases of Smirnoff a week. That's the kind of place.
Wow.
But I saw a construction worker guy. He obviously looked very construction workery. He had those kind of shoes. He bought a handful of the Smirnoff 50 mLs. And I'm looking, I'm like, it's 9:30 in the freaking morning. And you're obviously heading back to the construction site.
Yeah.
Nice, dude.
As an old trick, you put it in the mortar.
They can come up with a lot of different ways to, to cancel out the opportunity. But you know what? It's all about being responsible. You're an adult. If you make the decision to open your container in your car, that's on you. You make a decision to open it on your way home, that's on you. It's no different than going to the grocery store, picking up a 6-pack than it is to the liquor store or the bodega on the corner and walking home and doing so on the way. That is on you. Right. Now if you're worried about the liability of where, don't do that. But if you're worried about the liability and the health and the safety of people, then become a dry county, because that's just
a year ago.
Which, by the way, it doesn't work either. But
it doesn't work either. But
it's terrible.
People go to the
Marty might have
go to the other board. Here in Illinois, it used to be Wisconsin used to be drinking age was 18. Right. And when Illinois turned to 21, oh my God, where did all the 18-year-olds go? Oh, they went up to Wisconsin to drink, and what happened?
They drove back.
Yeah, they drove back drunk. Of course,
I used to do that when I was 18. When Maryland was 18 and Pennsylvania was 21. Mm-hmm. And it was a 45-minute drive over 2-lane roads. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I'm alive.
Yeah, we're seeing the same effect with COVID. All everybody's going to Lake Geneva from Chicago and coming back down to Chicago.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't get anywhere in the immediate Midwest region for the weekend because everything's booked. Everyone's leaving town. Everyone's, taking that 24, 48-hour leeway.
I think they're leaving the state. They're leaving
the
state.
Too.
They're leaving the city, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was in. Yeah, sorry, Wilson.
No, go on, man. I was just going to say a lot of people are leaving.
Right, like I was in Iowa for the holidays and was at a bar. And it was socially distanced. Everyone was safe. No one came around you. And there was probably 20 people in this bar, had a burger, had a beer. Shout out to the High Life Lounge. And it was completely safe. But we can't do that 200 miles east in Illinois, which makes no sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Guys up in some of the guys I know up in Milwaukee. Milwaukee's more shut down than the rest of Wisconsin. Yeah. And the rest of Wisconsin seems very happy. Nobody is... There doesn't seem to be a big surge there, but in Milwaukee, the little buttholes are so tightly puckered that they won't get COVID. At least not up their butt.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's.
I got to tell you though, the biker bar in town just has the tent over, no walls or anything, but those guys are in there elbow to elbow every afternoon. Well, and that can't be safe.
No, I agree with that.
Well, but you wonder because the whole there was a lot of articles that came out after the whole what's the Harley group
the Sturgis thing.
So there was 450,000.
Yeah,
which was bullshit. But now they're coming around and saying that there actually was about 60 or 70.
60 or 70,000 cases.
Now that they've actually tracked it rather than just some ding dong.
Yeah, there was some ding dong doing estimate, and he was saying there was going to be 200,000. And then they did track. Well, at one point, it was about 4 weeks after they tracked it. They said, there was maybe about 40 cases and one COVID-related death, which, as we know, could mean I fell off my ladder fixing my gutter and I had COVID.
That's you know what? Maybe we ought to not get into this.
Yeah,
just saying.
Let's stick to booze.
Let's stick to booze, Marty.
I like to stick to booze myself.
All of this is affecting booze is the problem, and it's going to affect a lot of different livelihoods. I just think people have. I think
already has
all these. I know, right? And it's going to affect even more if we keep it on this thing.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's one of those things where we're at the beginning of it all. Jake and I were very active in promoting local, buy local, go to your local, watering holes, go to your local restaurants, go to your local liquor stores, and so on and so forth. Be as uber local as you can. But we thought about, I was like, well, how long can how can one sustain that, even as an individual? I know that I gave as much as, I don't have a lot of discretionary income after I pay my bills. So how can I really support those who, I felt I almost was hypocritical in a sense. Here I am preaching, but I couldn't really practice it because I don't have the means. So that in mind, how long was that able to be sustained? I'm like, because we don't know how long this is in. And then now we are in the holidays, post holidays, and we're still trying to do the best we can and promote at least, if I can't say it, at least post about it. If I can't spend the money, at least, throw it to people that I know. Hey man, if you could spare a couple bucks, help this cat over here that I know, or this maker over here. Cause it's one of those things where, it's just unpredictable. It's every day it's different. So our solutions are not the same today as they were yesterday or even tomorrow, because everyone's situation changes along with it, especially on the off-premise men. You can't go walk into an off-premise because they're stacked. They just have so much. Like I called the guy, I was like, hey, do you still want me to come in? He goes, I can't put anything else on my floor, my shelves, behind my register. I am stacked to the gills, and I can't fault him that, because we all.
No, explain to me, why is that? Is it not selling, or? Well,
no, it's the focus shifted from Jake and I's perspective. It focused from on-premise, off-premise to strictly off-premise. So every liquor store got overly just saturated.
Oh, because everybody. Okay, all right.
Yeah, because everyone's out there. Yeah, so now all of our attentions has focused on the same,
And actually, for you two, I was really kind of surprised to learn this. I thought, I don't know, for some reason I thought all small distilleries followed the same path. But it turns out there were a number that really put a lot of their eggs in the on-premise basket, prior to all this. Where others kind of went, it's in a way, it's an easier route. You go to a Binny's, they like your stuff. They put it into a good number of their stores. Easy placement. Hopefully you do some promo there. And
lot fewer personnel to mess with.
Yeah. And now, though, even if that's the route you went, and some of the folks who went with the off-premise have done very well, or better than others.
Right.
Still, what they're battling are the big boys. You know, if you're here in Chicago, DIAGEO owns its own whole house over at Breakthrough. So they go in there. If customers aren't willing to go all the way into these big stores, all right, well, let's move all these floor displays up front. And they're the big bottles. That was what was selling big time earlier in the year, were all the big 1.75 handles. So the tequila, vodka, the big name whiskeys. And so for you small guys, are you able to go in and maneuver that somehow where you can get some kind of traction?
Well, I think the biggest thing for us is either running a deal on your whiskeys and making sure that you have good marketing materials in those stores to help bring light or bring eyes to your actual bottles. But it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, barrel picks. I mean, barrel picks right now are going crazy. Stores are launching 5, 7, 10 in the last couple of months at their individual stores. And for us, it's been really great where we can go to Binny's and have a barrel pick throughout 31 of their 44 stores and be right there front and face in the middle of the whiskey section in between your bourbons and your rye. And there's an Australian whiskey single malt sitting right there on a barrel pick, and it's $60, $65. I don't know that's too crazy in price. And hopefully it'll lead you back to the bottles on the shelf where our core products are, which we've seen a little result in. And I know that Wilson's been doing some individual barrel picks as well that have helped out the brand growing from there, because we don't have like the forced control of moving our bottles around on the shelf and saying we'd like to have our bottles facing, at eye level or at least in the middle shelf and not on the bottom shelf where both of us have to deal with a lot as smaller brands. And I think barrel picks are one resolution to that, but it's also going back into those stores every day and reminding the people that work in the aisles that you're around and saying like, hey, here's a familiar sample of your stuff, and Starboard's over here in the New World whiskey section. Union Horse is over in the bourbon and rye, where we really focus on making some really quality American whiskeys. And hopefully when that customer comes in and says, hey, I'm looking for a rye, I'm looking for a bourbon that I haven't had before, something that's maybe a little craft or something that's not traditional in the sense of buying from your big 5 brands. There you go. Hopefully that will help out.
Right.
Do you see a halo effect from the barrel picks?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'm sorry, a halo effect?
Like people who maybe weren't interested in the brand before, they see the barrel pick, they try it. Do they then come in and look for another barrel pick, or do they look for your brand? I like this. Let me try the. That's
the risk of it. I know and I know Wilson, like your owners are a little apprehensive about doing too many barrel picks versus, and I mean, don't want to get into the details of the business, but we're the same way too, because we don't want people to focus on like, hey, here's 110 proof Nova of ours versus our 81 or 82 proof Nova. So it's like, it's something different. It's definitely a highlighted element of our whiskey.
Yeah, with our single barrels that we bring to the market, we don't want to oversaturate the market with them, because we don't want them to be like, we don't want the attitudes like, well, they're all over the place, even though some brands are, but those are brands that can. Ours are more intentional. Ours are released in the spring and in the fall. That way, it serves the collector, the fan, the curious. And of course, it services just the market in general, because single barrels, as Jake said earlier, is like it's been, and you as well, Lew. It's the way of not the future, but everyone is focused on that.
The future,
Whether you are a proof hound, a flavor hound, or you just love to collect single barrels and are just curious about it, developing a single barrel program to fit that took some time, but we were able to work with our distributor to put a plan in front of them and ask them to also step up and say, hey, if we do this, we are counting on you to really push it with us, not just have little old Wilson out there by himself. We want you and your team to get behind this, and then Jake travels the country on behalf of his brand to help, facilitate that as well, because we all need a face to the brand, so that's the first and primary reason of our role, here in Chicago, or just in general, anywhere throughout the country, is to be that person that you associate to the brand, and then if you can't be everywhere, what moment you have is that long lasting effect. So you hope that it's either the face or what's in it's in the glass that you try and like, that was fucking good. he was good looking. Let's get some more of that shit. It's just one of those ways. It's like.
Wait, now did they think you were good looking after they were drinking the whiskey?
Hey, you should know this better than me, Marty. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Oh my God.
Liz, doesn't matter.
Good guy.
Yeah. I mean, I know you carry that little thing in your pocket all the time, and I'm talking about your little thing. A little gang Karen is weed.
Yeah.
Now he's just happy to see it.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that we Jake and I discuss a lot, and we I know I beat my head over with it I beat it over my head over 1,000 times every day, because we love what we do, and we hope that it comes through and how we talk about it, how we present it, and how we carry it with us, and how we and just through the bottle itself. And it's tough, because some days you're just not on, and you still have to find it in you to really bring it in and bring it out of you to really help that person make a decision on whether, hey, I do want to try something different, or just stick to what I already know. And that's part of the problem too. Like during this time, we revisited our accounts and was like, hey, one way to really help the situation is revisit pricing. I can't go any lower because I've given you the best price that I have. How about you take a hit for us and maybe not make 35% margin on it? How about making 28 just for Q4, maybe start of Q1, just to help, because I mean, we all got to give a little to get a little. And if you don't ask, you don't get. Fortunately, back to Jake's point as well, is that we have strong enough rooted relationships throughout the city, whether on or off premise, that they're like, you know what, dude, we'll do it for you because you're good to us. Yeah. So they'll bring down the price, call it a sale. I don't care what the hell you call it, but let's help some people get these brands home and get it onto their bar. Because then when the price goes back up to the original $5-6 it was before, no fucking questions asked. I'm going to grab another bottle. It's one of those things that, we constantly have to reevaluate and reintroduce, if you will.
Yeah, because we're not working for local brands. What we always say is that hopefully people can support us as local ambassadors to sell our brand. And they're buying, as you pointed out, Wilson, they're buying you as much as they're buying the brand because they trust you and you have those relationships.
And Wilson doesn't come cheap. I'll tell you that.
No, I'm not cheap. I'm not cheap at all.
Watch this kid eat, man.
We're coming down to the wire here. So why don't we do a little round thing? Let's make the rounds, and everybody give how about a positive and a negative that you might see for 2021.
Oh, cool. Oh, I like that.
Start with Wilson. We'll go. What is that? Clockwise.
Well, positive is continued good health for those who are healthy, and positive, and taking care of those around you, the most closest ones in your friendships and your family. The negative that I see going into 21 is that we still are unsure of what we are going to face. But I hope that with positivity, we can overcome that. And that's all I can really say about that.
All right. Jake?
Positive is, you still the people around you. It's the biggest thing. Rely on the people that you can trust, and when they're still around, hopefully you're still around, pick them up, and pick yourself up too. It's if you're having a down day, reach out to people, and then oppositely, make sure people reach out to you too if they're having a down day. I know it's been a big problem. Part of the pandemic has been depression and suicide, which we talk a lot about in our podcast too. And we've had a guest on and talk about that in the bar and whiskey industry more specifically. So reach out to people. The negative can only be if you sit and dwell, on the negatives, and there's always some light at the end of the day. So I just hope people reach out to each other, stay positive along this time, because we'll eventually get out of this and drink whiskey together.
Lizard?
Positive, hopeful. I'll go with vacuum.
Yeah.
I'm
in with that.
And negative, I don't know. I'm having a hard time. I'm just like about 2021.
Awesome, that's good.
So my negative is...
The negative is that there's nothing negative that I can think of.
there's a void of negativity.
Oh, there's a void.
No, I don't know.
Hey, by the way, real quick, just for everyone out there, we're all going to dress up for New Year's. Only Liz dressed up, so that's why she looks so glamorous, and the rest of us. Oh, and Jake put on a coat.
And
combed his hair and took a bath.
So the negative thing is that there was a plan, and I was the only one who showed up for it.
Executed. My positive is that the economy has not collapsed. I know that sounds like a not negative, but holy crap, I don't know why it hasn't. We've had some really rough times here, severe unemployment, especially in our sector, and somehow things have managed to keep going so far, and I think that's a minor miracle. So I'm going to take it. As far as negative, we touched on it earlier. The Fountainhead gone, the Grey Lodge here in Philadelphia gone. On and on and on, and that's just killing me. I love those places, and I'm already hearing people say, "Oh, well, then other people will come along after it's over and they'll be able to get those places and open again." I'm like, yeah, it'll be Chili's. Yeah. And freaking Applebee's reopening. The variety is, I guess, the variety and the longevity. There's some really old places that are being closed and will never open again.
Historic, and they were tried and true.
It makes me really sad. And I realize you have to keep it in perspective that people are dying, and I get that. But that's every day, and and this is on top of that.
Yeah.
That sucks.
I think my negative is I don't want to see Lew Bryson bellying up to a Chili's bar. So, asking a guy for some kind of blended drink, and you start comparing the bottles. I see, positive. I see a lot of brands, a lot of.
Wait! Wilson popped in here. He wants another shot. He wants to go again.
I know. He moved. Little fucker moved next in line. Hey,
I got more. Sorry, Marty. Go ahead.
So, positive is I see a lot of folks like Jake and Wilson doing, being able to adapt.
Yeah.
And hopefully those moves, keep their brands afloat. Hopefully generate even more income so other people can get employed.
Yeah.
The negative, as for me, is if this stuff continues, these lockdowns continue, and if our politicians don't really look at some of the harm they're doing, we are going to lose more of those places. In Chicago, we've lost places that have been around for 50 years. And, I love those places. I love going into places that have history. And if it ends up being a bunch of, it's only what's the burrito place that McDonald's is?
Chipotle?
Chipotle. I want a real Mexican restaurant. I want a real stuff. I miss going to an Italian restaurant and sit down and yum and wine and just doing that stuff and being around people when I do it. I can put in, but right now my cat's getting on my nerves, and one of us has got to go.
And the cat ain't paying rent.
No, and food up the yin yang. My cat just thinks, "Oh, Dave, feed me more. What's the matter? We go with more food." Hey, before we go, I just want to say, Lew and I are wearing this T-shirt, Fights Cancer.
That's why we didn't dress up, Liz. That's sweet.
Yeah, it really is.
Yes, absolutely.
So Chris Patino, a well-known member of the drinks industry here in the States, I believe he's located on the West Coast. He's battling cancer. Our good friend Dan Crowell from Glenmorangie is also still, he might be in the clear. Steve Beal went under the knife just last week for pancreatic cancer. Lew and I's father both died of cancer. My brother had cancer earlier this year. Cancer, I think we're in unison when we say cancer sucks.
Cancer sucks.
Cancer sucks. And if there's any way we can stop it, even if it's a little thing, buy this T-shirt. The money goes towards fighting cancer.
Yeah, this was pancreatic cancer research. I think this goes to.
Does it?
I believe. Yeah.
And the link is posted. So
sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah.
check it out.
Please get a shirt.
Yeah. And Liz, why don't you take us out since you're the prettiest and all dressed up?
Yeah.
Dustiest.
Not to mention the one with the really good news here.
The good news is
That will be here.
our next guest.
Well, that we decided to keep going because we didn't know if we were here.
Yeah.
Yes, so this is our last show of 2020. We're going to move on, and we're going to start a new beginning of 2021.
Gosh.
And one thing that will continue is the show. So join us again.
A negative, maybe a negative for some and a positive for some.
It wasn't our
50-50.
So join us. ASOC will continue into 2021. We're really excited about our first guest that's coming on for 2021, and it is Mike Miller of Delilah's. Really excited to have him on. So
Just to show you we're absolutely serious.
Yeah.
check it out. There's also a link up to Wilson and Jake's podcast. So check that out.
Check it out. It's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, check it out. We got the 12 Days of Whiskey that Jake has produced.
12 days of barrel picks.
Barrel picks. So we got that going on right now. I'm wearing a Tequila Lake t-shirt that was gifted us by the Urban Bourbonist, Chris Blattner, who's also a big fan of the show. I want to shout out to everyone that's listened. I want to shout out to everyone that's housed our show. Shout out to Jake for keeping it real for us, keeping it in line, forgiving the times that I have not been able to join him, and keeping our friendship going. I love you guys. I love you, Jake. Shout out.
Wrong way. There we go. Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us as well.
Yeah, Jake. You have more, little Jake?
Oh, I just want to say shout out to Mike Miller and Delilah's for doing their tasting programs that they're launching next year. So I think Fred knows one of their first ones they're going to do a tasting with. So if you want to support local that way, that's an awesome way to do it.
Yeah, and Mike's going to have a lot to say about the future of bars here in Chicago and nationwide.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with him about a week ago, and yeah, I think he's going to have a basket full of stuff to.
I think it's safe to say that Miller's going to have plenty to say.
And that's Mike Miller. Marty.
50-50 shot.
All right, everyone. Well, here's to all of you from all of us. Old Lang Syne, everyone, which means for old time's sake.
Hey.
Cheers. Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone. See you in 2021.
Mm-hmm. Is that a thing?
I hope to God it's a thing.
Who knows, Wilson? Who knows?
I have no idea. I don't even know what day it is.
That's also a good point.
I keep on forgetting, too.